Hi and welcome to On the Record, your playbook for tapping India. Today we have a guest speaker on our platform. He is Akshay, who is VP of Business from Plum. Plum, you might be knowing, is one of the fastest growing startup and is a new age insurance cum employee benefit platform for India. He is one of the leading platforms and we are fortunate to have Akshay speak about how to go about various insurance and employee benefits today. Thanks Akshay for being on the platform. Really good to have you here.
No, awesome. Thank you for the opportunity, Naveen, and really excited to chat with you today. Let's get started.
Cool. So tell me Akshay, now we are seeing a lot of rise of remote working, especially by the global employers who are hiring through EOR or an employer of record.
Correct.
So when you have remote first team, what kind of hacks does employers should follow to ensure that there is right amount of employee wellness, come motivation or whatever you can say? If you can share some of those tips and hacks they should go about. Yeah.
I think this is a topic where everyone is learning on the go, right? First of all, because it was not very common before COVID, and then suddenly it became common. And now there is very polarized thoughts about it everywhere in the world. But I don't think at least hybrid is here to stay, right? I don't think it's disappearing anywhere. And remote definitely has its use cases, right? Especially if you're entering a country, you're trying to set up, maybe, initially it's going to be remote, right? It's going to be employees where they are and before you set up an office and all of that, right? So definitely see that. But coming to your question, right? First I would say that, hey, let's look at what are the, sort of top challenges that people are facing. I think number one, companies, we see many companies, especially when you see younger companies, startups in their own countries entering here to expand, they don't have a very good defined policy around remote work, around remote teams, right? What are the norms, right? What is expected? And that, whether you realize it or not, it creates a lot of anxiety amongst people, right? That, hey, am I doing, because you can't see anyone for immediate feedback.
Right.
You just have to wait, right, till the next meeting. So I think that lack of a policy is a big challenge. Second, there's a lack of a community, right? When you are in a workspace, when you are meeting people, even if you have other team members in the same city, there is some sort of community building.
Grabbing a coffee together.
Correct. It could be something as simple as
not just a transactional relationship.
Exactly. Whereas in remote work, what you often see is that people only go from one meeting to next with a very deliberate purpose.
Correct.
Right? No one is setting up a meeting just to hang out, right? Which happens very naturally and organically in a non-remote kind of environment. So lack of a community is also a challenge. Third, there is no segregation of work and personal life. If you are working in your bedroom, if you are operating your entire life, everything.
Perspective 9 to 6 versus 5 to 11 or 12.
Correct. Right. The lines are blurred, right, and people suddenly are always on, which has a lot of other effects on people, right? And I think in COVID especially, everyone experienced this always on kind of feeling, the need to, is it done, the day is over? No, but my computer is still on, I can still work. Right, definitely another area which deserves attention. As a consequence of some of these things, you see a lot of people's mental health is gets affected. Right, whether you may not realize it happens very slowly. Right, mental health gets affected, physical health gets affected, especially your posture, your just general fitness, because you're just sitting on your desk or your bed and working all day. Right. You don't even, some people don't bother to get fully dressed for the day also, right? They just put on whatever they're wearing.
They may not have the right equipment as well. Many companies don't send you a desktop or a chair, ergonomical
so
chair.
I think a very valid point, right? I think infrastructure, right? So one aspect of infrastructure that you highlighted is obviously lack of a ergonomic workspace for people. But in a country like India, what many people outside India may not appreciate is that power supply, good internet, is a challenge, especially if you are not located in a large city. And sometimes even if you're located in a large city, you may have unreliable internet, you may have very interrupted power supply.
So these are individual internet connections,
exactly,
not corporate level.
Exactly. So it causes a lot of sort of issues. And then to top all of this, you have what nature has decided in the term, thanks, and what we see as time zones, right? Earlier you may have I'm working between X to Y time in general, and maybe I have some meetings on the other side of the day. But now, because if you're working from home, and you have other people working from home in other parts of the world and so on, and everyone is in a different time zone, life is very, very painful, right? Like, it may be 9 a.m. for someone, but they don't realize it may be 10 p.m. for you here.
Correct.
Right? So it's a tough situation people are navigating. Now, how do we solve some of these, right? Like, what have companies done to maybe solve this? One, the best companies usually have a very clear policy, a set of norms, which almost form the basis for what is sort of the remote culture. Right? Like, people know what is expected, people know what's okay not to do. It may seem obvious to you as an individual, as a leader, but it may not be obvious to everyone in your company, right? So write it down so people can refer to it, right? Like, are you expected to be dressed in a certain way in every meeting? Are you expected to switch on the camera or not? Right? Write it down. That removes ambiguity, reduces stress, right? Makes people more sort of involved in their day, and makes them more confident, right? Because ambiguity is reduced. When it comes to the whole workplace setup, etc., I think you have to be very thoughtful about the allowances you give or the facilities you provide to make sure that people are able to make the most of their time. Right? There is no point if you've given a flexibility of remote work, but by the way that person lives in a place where internet does not work reliably, right? Or the connection that they want maybe is too expensive for them to spend extra money on, right? So maybe you have allowances for those, or you have a way of centralizing that procurement and giving them those equipments, right? Maybe it's a better modem, maybe it is an allowance for a standing desk, right? Or some ergonomic.
Or maybe some activities which promotes physical wellness.
Correct. So I was coming to that. So over there, right? Like, there's lots that employers can do today, right? When it comes to all of these things, I want to call this a lot of ills, right? And solutions are there today. For example, you can invest in a mental wellness kind of program for your employees, which could include consultations, which could include group sessions, which could include specific therapy that you want to have. When it comes to physical fitness, you could, like we discussed earlier, we could invest in, let's say, giving people gym memberships. That hey, please go ahead and for $10 a month, go to a great gym, stay fit, right? Don't destroy your posture, your strength, right? When it comes to communities, depending on how your team is set up, where it's located, etc., you could purposefully set up micro communities, right, around shared interests or the shared location, right? And when it comes, let's say, again, time zones is an area that you could address by policy. Right? Like, listen, you're not expected to take a meeting after 8 p.m. your country time. Right? It's helpful. It helps people manage this thing. And I think just be empathetic, right? Like, it's you never know how a person's situation, if they are working from their home, is, right? There may be so many distractions related to their family. They may have children running around at home. Somebody may be ill. And if you're going to work and attend to that and sort of manage everything else, you need to be empathetic in that situation, right? So I would say that in terms of, like, listen, there are ways to address some of these things, and maybe these are good examples. I think an area which may be valuable to the audience also is around specific programs or sort of incentives or sort of solutions they could do for this workforce. We discussed some of them. One is obviously a mental wellness kind of program. Second is, these people may be located in very, very different locations. Some may be living in tier 2 cities, maybe in villages with their parents where they grew up, because you don't have an office, right? You could invest in providing great access to doctor consultations, virtual doctor consultations at the tip of their fingers on a mobile app. Right. You could also, I think, recognition and feeling of togetherness can come by running awards and incentive programs. Right, where people can sort of see and know, okay, how do I know I did good? I don't see anybody. No one is appreciating me. Right. Go out of the way of giving them awards. Right, recognizing them in like sort of a virtual all hands. Right, do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Other things that we see, areas to consider, especially in this kind of remote work setup, is maybe you want to also consider childcare or elder care. Right. Which could make it easier for them to balance this
work-life
balance. Because a lot of homes also, from an Indian perspective, they're not so large that people have a separate study, they have a separate child. They are probably having a 2 or 3 room house in which everything is happening, right? So maybe you want to give some allowance or at least connect them to people who can provide good child care or sort of elder care in their locations, right? So these are all things. And then finally, I think one thing which is really not happening anymore in like a remote work setup is mentorship or having a buddy. Right, what we used to see in physical workplaces, where the whole mentor kind of setup or having a buddy when you joined a company. They gave you a buddy when you joined a company, right? That rarely happens in a remote setup. And even when they assigned a buddy physically, very often it may not really continue.
Right.
But in a virtual setup, it will definitely not continue. So actively invest in like having a mentorship, sort of tag people, be thoughtful about who you tag people with, even as a buddy who you tag people with. So I think like some of these things definitely can
I think I'll add to that, even off-site meetings.
Yes.
Frequent off-site meetings can help you build great relationship with your colleagues and staff. So which can then continue to percolate during the remote working time as well.
No, definitely. I think getting your remote teams together in a periodic basis.
Right.
It helps them sort of come together. One is obviously where you mentioned through an offsite or a travel, a holiday kind of thing. But you could also, and some companies have started doing this, is your team is remote in general, but they come together once a quarter.
For a week or 10 days just to work and have fun both.
Yes. So, and it's very deliberate, and over there is where you run all your employee engagement, right? Maybe do health checkups there, maybe have entertainment.
Games and stuff.
Whatever, right? Anything that works. So I think that's definitely a great point that we should do.
Cool.
Thanks
Akshay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's it in today's session. This is a very, very important piece of employee attraction and retention, because everyone, especially in the tech sector, look for it. I hope this session was helpful. That's it for today. Thank you everyone. Take care.